My 23F partner, 25M, is developing agoraphobia and anxiety as a result of the pandemic, and I want to help him, but I'm not sure how. My partner and I have been together for 5 years, and he's never had any issues with anxiety or depression before the pandemic. We both are engineers and are lucky enough to work from home. We live in New England, where people are taking COVID pretty seriously already. Back in March, we both assumed we'd be going back to our offices sooner than later. His job is in electric utility. I needed to run experiments in the lab in academia, so we didn't quarantine together when the stay-at-home orders started. As a result, he spent 2 months alone and developed some anxiety over going into public. He would go outside on walks only if he left from his personal patio behind his apartment to avoid shared doors, and would order groceries online. I moved in with him during the summer, and he really struggled with going out in public. He would leave stores ASAP if he saw someone not wearing a mask or wearing one incorrectly, sometimes forgetting stuff on the grocery list or paying for takeout and not picking it up. This weekend was the worst. He was so excited to make a candy slide for socially distanced trick-or-treating, only to leave the hardware store all upset because there were people without masks on there. Something I can't change that's definitely causing issues is that his co-workers, all of which are around his age and who he used to hang out with prior to the pandemic, are also struggling with anxiety in public. Their words and actions sort of influence each other into deeper anxiety. One co-worker ended up in the ER after his wife invited a friend over to sit outside in the backyard over the summer. He tried to climb a fence to get away and broke his wrist. I'm already pretty cautious when it comes to my actions around the pandemic. I limit my trips to the store, I stay home as much as possible, I don't go out to eat, I always wear a mask properly, so I'm not pushing him to be unsafe. I'm afraid that these anxieties will develop into something permanent when the pandemic ends, and I don't want him to hurt like that. We've reached out to a couple therapists today, but we haven't heard back. Is there anything I can do to help him and ease his fears in public? Every possible remedy is out of my control, as strangers' behaviors with masks are unpredictable, and I don't want to be too risky with the virus. Too long didn't read. Partner is afraid of going out in public and being around others not wearing masks / wearing them improperly. I want to help him before it becomes full-blown agoraphobia. The thing is, his anxiety isn't irrational at this point in time in the US. Him getting anxious at the sight of unmasked people in a grocery store makes sense. Still, therapy sounds like a good idea if it is affecting him a lot. Another idea is to keep up socializing by phone calls / gaming / video calls as much as you can. Thirdly, is there somewhere safe you can go, like walking / hiking in an area with very few people? Mindfulness can also help. Headspace is a great app. Exercise and yoga / stretching can be good to reduce stress. The same can be said for keeping a healthy diet, eating frequently enough, drinking enough water, and not having too much caffeine. I would leave a shop too if multiple people were in there without masks on. Some might find that unreasonable or extreme. I just weigh out the risks of minor inconveniences versus getting COVID and the possible complications associated with the disease. I'm not as afraid of dying from COVID as I am from long-term side effects that a lot of people, young folks included, are reporting. I do think a therapist is necessary though to learn how to cope with the anxiety. The sooner you can intercept and get him in therapy, the better, so it's great you've reached out to couples therapists. Individual therapy is likely what he needs, but that could be a foot in the door. Let him know you support him, you'll call around to see who takes his insurance, you leave the house to give him privacy during sessions, etc. This will require therapy and non-judgmental support from you and others in his support system. Oh, it's not couples therapy, it's individual. I meant I was just helping search and narrowing down the results by insurance and availability, so we could cover more bases quicker. Smile. Okay, so I have GAD, depression, and agoraphobia. What helped me the most was cognitive therapy, if you can find someone doing that. I've gone for years and there was a time that I couldn't even leave the house or I would have a terrible anxiety attack. Therapy really helped me in that situation. For me, they recommended trying to find a comfort item in public. For me, it ended up being my gloves. I'm also on medication that helps me mediate my depression and anxiety. I also have pills that will stop an attack in its tracks. Carrying those helped me because I could take the pill and calm down and try again later. I also still have problems when people crowd me in stores. So instead I'll get up super early or super late, when a lot of people aren't there. That way I'll end up with a better chance of not running into a situation that could trigger me. A lot of places, aka Walmart, will do curbside pickup so I can still go out and pick things up when I'm feeling jittery, but I don't have to go inside. That way I'm still going outside of the house but also not putting myself in awful situations. Try taking a drive if you guys can, just to get him outside. Also take vitamins, and I can tell a difference when I'm on them and not on them. It's not a cure but more of giving me a better chance of not freaking out. Vitamin D is important for me being in the house a lot. Honestly, it seems more like he's terrified of the disease, which honestly I don't know much about. Just more or less I can say from agoraphobia side of things. My reply is probs a hot mess, but if you have any questions I'm always open. I, 23F, also lived alone for 2 months back in the spring, and it has definitely messed with my head. In a weird way, I was lucky enough to have dealt with anxiety issues in the past, so I had a pretty robust mental health support plan in place already, but it was still really tricky. I have a hard time communicating about what that point in time was like to people who had people living with them, and even though, while being careful, I'm now able to live my life/go places, the anxiety is still real. I don't have concrete advice, just wanted to poke my head out and say that y'all aren't alone and you're doing amazing by trying to help him. My 24F sisters, 29F boyfriend, 26M, tested positive for COVID. He asked if he could stay in my house. I said no. Now I'm feeling guilty. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2.5 years. He's a depressive person, he's been through a lot, and in all the time we've been together I've had his back so much. I do everything I can for him, I help him with everything, whatever it is, I'm there. I just want to make clear that this is a huge factor in our relationship and in my mental health, since sometimes I found myself overcaring, overdoing things for him, and it affects me. Sometimes I'll act more like his mother than his GF, he told me that, and I know that's not right. So now, her sister, a doctor, has tested positive for COVID, and he asked me if he could stay in my house since he doesn't have the best relationship with her, plus he has several asthma. I told him no. Why? Well, I live with 8 people. My mother, 47F, who has hypertension, overweight and hypothyroidism. My dad, 54M, who just smokes a lot. My brother, 31M, and his daughter, 5F. My sister, 33F, her boyfriend, 29F, and their baby, 3 months, and my grandmother, 78F. And I'm sorry for the next part, but my native language is Spanish, so I'm doing my best redacting this based on the English that I've learned from school, movies, TV shows and music. I'll try my best to describe you how my house is. Basically, we live all together. We have different houses in the same little piece of land. So all really literally together. Until we have our own homes, we're all always hanging out. My room is apart from my house, but I can be at my sister's, my grandmother's. We have a little patio where we do exercise. I mean, we all have our little space for ourselves, but that's not how things work here. We are always together. So, when my BF asked me if he could stay here, I immediately thought in my family and how dangerous would be for them if he's positive too. But at the same time I know how dangerous it is for him with his asthma to stay with her sister. But at the same time I know on the basic rules of this pandemic and QUARONTINE. I tried to talk with my mom and she did her best trying to calculate with me when this girl started to have symptoms and how many chances my BF had to be infected, etc. But at the end we both knew that the answer was no. Plus the last time we saw each other was on Saturday morning, Today is Tuesday. When he went home, he was at my house since Thursday. So now I have to think that I may be infected too. Anyways, I know I did the right decision for my family. I'm always gonna choose to protect them, and I wouldn't forgive myself if something happens. But at the same time, I can't stop thinking in the fact that my BF could be not infected yet and I'm throwing him to the wolves. With his asthma and everything, it would kill me if something happens to him, and I could have prevented it. So I'm feeling like I did the right thing, but at the same time I'm feeling guilty. Lately I haven't been in cloud 9 with my BF, his depression issues and my mother behavior had started to be a real issue, and now this. I think it is, did I do the right thing? How can I not feel guilty? How can I let go this overprotective behavior towards him? My BF has his own room and her sister has her own room where she can quarantine. They'll be using just the same bathroom, and with his dad trying to clean everything. It's not like they live in a shoebox either. Too long didn't read. My sister's boyfriend tested positive for COVID. He asked if he could stay in my house, but I said no to protect my family. And now I'm having mixed feelings and guilt. I think it's cause I developed an overprotective attitude towards him. Better safe than dead. Your family is your first priority. Guilt is not a factor in this. Don't play roulette because you don't want to hurt his feeling. Honestly, the fact that he asked at all is no cool to me. Consider your family dynamic, that closeness is your bubble. He is likely already infected if he was sharing living spaces normally with an infected person. To bring an infected person into a household of elderly, ill people and children would be grossly irresponsible. I understand he's scared due to his asthma, but that ship has sailed. All he's been doing is infecting more vulnerable people. Your family should also all get tested, and you personally should also isolate from the rest of your family. Recognize that you were in a situation with no good solution. Sometimes life is like that. It is just a terrible situation. You made a choice, the one you thought was best, and now all you can do is hope it was the best choice. You're not a bad person for being in a situation where every option endangers somebody close to you. Booze found in husband's truck and wedding ring is missing. So I noticed my husband wasn't wearing his wedding ring tonight. I asked what happened and he said it must have fallen off while I was washing my hands. He didn't have time to look for it because he was headed out the door to do the urban bicycle ministry. They ride around on bikes and feed the homeless. I looked in the sink and didn't find it, so I went to look in his truck and I found a truly hard Seltzer and a White Claw, both unopened, in the passenger seat. Putting these two elements together has me worrying something's up that he's not telling me. We've been together 8 years, married 3 months. I am 37 F, he is 46 M. Am I paranoid or should I be worried? Thanks. Edit. It has been pointed out that I missed some important contextual info. I am 2.5 years sober. After this posting I talked to him and found out the booze was given to him by a distributor. Rubber ring is still missing, but I have learned that's normal and happens all the time. We talked and all is good. I am thinking I was definitely being paranoid. I apologize for leaving out important details. Not intentional, was panicking in the moment. Thanks Reddit. Too long didn't read. Husband not wearing wedding ring and I found girly booze in his truck. Is he cheating or am I paranoid? I am 37 F, he is 46 M, together 8 years, married 3 months. If it's just those two things, I wouldn't be too worried. He's nonchalant about a rubber ring, because it's just a cheap rubber ring. His real one is safe. I wouldn't think anything of the drinks, but I'm not you. If some other things are feeling off, then I'd be concerned.